I'm delighted to be here. And let me tell you right at the outset, I don't want to lecture you here. I would rather like to have an exchange. You might like to meet me, but I certainly like to meet you. So let me just do a few introductory remarks, and then hopefully we could get into some kind of early Sunday morning discussion if you're already fresh and up to it. You heard the summary of my professional career, and let me summarize it myself in the following words. Our system of foreign policy, like many others, there are nuances in different countries, follows still what we call the generalist principle. That is, you may become a diplomat from whatever angle of life you've started. You may be a professor of chemistry or of political science or a reader of political sciences. We have the most remote areas of studies, agriculture, medicine, and yet the people at some point of their career after their studies decided, why not foreign policy? So they joined the foreign ministry, and from that moment on, in our system, they are part of a team covering the whole range of foreign policy issues, which is really from the narrow angle of politics to business relations, science and technology, culture, then the famous consular issues. I mean, how do you know an embassy? Most of the time, step one, I need a visa. Yeah, that's also part of it. We have important political visitors. That's the protocol side. So here you have the full range. And we are, in the course of our career, meant to potentially cover them all. And I'm actually quite an example of that. Sometimes I've done from consular to disarmament issues in New York to science and culture and education. Sometimes I wonder whether if this is presented to anybody, those people can think that this is a serious profession because it's just too much at a time. Anyway, our target is not to become a specialist like Professor Sen or others in their field. We, if I may use that slightly flippant remark, we sell our country or build on the relations with other countries. Now, this was remark number one. If you have any questions on my personal itinerary, please ask later. The second general remark I wanted to share with you is about the very different nature of diplomacy in the 21st century. If you step a century or a century and a half back, diplomacy was really a matter of the specialist. Then hard to imagine, but in those days there was no internet, no Facebook, no phone lines. So a diplomat would be sent out to the court of Tsar, of the Russian Tsar, like one of our famous foreign ministers and diplomats, Bismarck. You may have heard the name. And he, when you read his letters or his autobiography, you can see he went there. It took him days and weeks to get to his foreign posting, and then there he was and would report back from time to time. So it was really the diplomat out there, quite far away. It was also the era of what they called secret diplomacy. You know, when there was an issue, the diplomats and the politicians, they would meet behind closed doors, and the outcome would be war or peace, but really the public had to deal with the consequences. It was really a chasse gardée, some area that was not very open to the public. And now this has changed so much in our day and age. What used to be secret diplomacy really has become, I would call, and that people call it public diplomacy. Why is that? Look, when your prime minister or our ministers travel, it's all over the press. They meet their counterparts at ever so many occasions. When there's a little issue, they may grab the phone and talk to them directly, and you hear about it in the press. Then every ministry, more or less, nowadays has their foreign relations. You couldn't even say that it's the foreign ministry dealing with foreign issues alone. Every ministry has their particular foreign relations in their field. It doesn't stop there. Foreign policy is not exclusively be dealt with by the administration and the ministries. There are hundreds and thousands of non-governmental organizations out there who have a strong, strong impact on what's happening in the area of foreign policy. Be it issues of human rights, landmines that affect lots of people in the world, all the questions of ecology, climate change, you name it, NGOs, the media, and also many individual people play an important role in what I called public diplomacy. So now you may understand why I think that meeting me is one thing. I'm also meeting you in your potential capacity as top diplomats in your field and in your area, because you are participating in this interconnected world in a very different manner than we used to, or one used to, decades and centuries ago. Now, the work of a public diplomat is not so much telling people what they might not know otherwise, but kind of communicate positions, interests of their country, and try to gather momentum for our common aims. Those issues where all these different players participate in there is a logic behind it, because take climate change, human rights, they are all issues that one state, one country cannot, and be it the US or in the old days, now it's even, I mean, you know, we are far beyond the monopolar world, or there used to be a bipolar world in the East-West, then at some point it was believed there's only one global leader now, more or less, with all the different emerging countries, and India obviously being one of them. You can clearly see we are in a multipolar world. At least it is crystal clear, not one state, and be it the most powerful, can solve these issues on their own. There is no possibility of that. So the only way is to communicate, to exchange views, to influence partners, to gain friends, and build long-term networks. And I mean, from here, you can see perhaps why we have gathered here. Last year, we had a big outreach initiative, which was our Year of Germany, where we tried to do as much as possible to reach out, especially to the younger generation. And what we are doing now, since you cannot have years after years after years of these activities, they are in demanding exercise, we wanted a particular follow-up in what I think we consider the most precious segment of our relations is in the field of higher education, because we reach out to you who are the next generation of our relations, and want to tell you about ourselves and hopefully get you interested in relations with Germany. India and Germany, I don't know who of you has already been to Germany, but maybe once on a trip? No, not yet? Okay. I would say, despite the fact that we have a lot in common in a way, we have both democratic systems, we both have federal systems. I could go into that. I don't want to do it here. We still need to know much more about each other. This starts with sometimes raising a first interest. And the most important, perhaps strategic aim, as I see it working in India, is getting an understanding of our complementary interest in each other. I give you just one particular example. You may have heard, or you certainly will have heard, this mind-boggling figure that the Prime Minister Singh has once mentioned on the need of giving education to about 500 million young Indians by the year 2022. That's a figure that has been quoted many a times. For an outsider, this looks like, my goodness, how is that ever going to be possible? Okay, you break it down and then you see that higher education is just one echelon, and then there is vocational training and so on. Germany and Europe has a lot to offer, as you may know or have already experienced, especially in the field of education, higher education, also in the field of vocational training, this famous dual system where a young person, when he or she gets vocational training, does not just learn in school, but has 50% in a company, so that on the workbench is a role model for many countries, and India is also very interested. I'm just mentioning this by the way. So first of all, we have a lot to offer, and then most importantly, we have a great interest in skilled workforce, as you may also have seen from you can read that in the paper, because what is your demographic dividend is in a way at the moment our demographic problem. So there is, I'm not saying it in the sense of problem or pleading, I'm just saying, mentioning it in a context of mutual interest. And what I call the complementarity of interest. If two countries, they can match because they are very similar and share views on, that are alike on most issues. We have, to quite some extent, that. We also have areas where our interests are not exactly alike. But what is even more interesting in my view, that's the one idea I wanted to share with you this morning, is where countries are intertwined by complementary interests. That is, I have to gain from you, you can gain from me. That is a very solid basis for a long friendship. If it's not a top-down approach from one just giving and the other one possibly just receiving. So combine these two thoughts, that we still have a lot to learn about each other, or just about the potentials, because there is I would say despite the fact that of late, and hopefully also thanks to our Germany year and the very good work by so many partners here, we have a very positive trend in many areas. And over the last years, there was an increase of about 25% in Indian students to Germany who discover, and if you don't know it yet, let me tell you, that you can study in Germany even on the basis of English alone, because there are so many diploma classes in English. Of course, if you learn German, all the better. It's tuition-free, and it's a very high standard. So it's traditionally Indian students, for clear, obvious reasons, look for the UK or the US or Australia, to the English-speaking countries. Have a look at Germany and you'll be surprised how much what I'm driving at is, this is all there, but not everybody knows about it, or not to the extent it is necessary. And when you add to that the mutual interest in building our future together with regard to solving these issues that no country on their own can settle, then you have the larger picture of what a public diplomat in India is working at and aiming at. I wanted to leave that with you as a kind of frame of what we might talk about, but from now on I'd like to leave you the choice whether you'd like to go more into questions relating to my career. Perhaps there's the one or the other who might even be interested in foreign policy themselves, or whether we could discuss and talk a little bit about the broader issues.